Today's show, well, this is a fun show for me because we're going to flash back. We're going to go back and dig out in our library some of our great interviews pertaining to Elvis Aaron Presley. Elvis with one A, of course. This is our Elvis annual special. And kicking it off is Miss Barbara Hearn Smith. Barb, how you doing, girl?
Thank you.
We saw you a couple of years ago. Now, first of all, before we get into Elvis, tell us what you and Mr. Smith are doing up in near Tennessee.
Well, Mr. Smith and myself, after 51 years, we're doing just fine. And we have a B&B in Trenton, Tennessee, a teapot capital of the world, I might add.
Teapot.
Teapot capital of the world.
And you say Trenton.
They say Trenton. I haven't been there long enough yet. I still say Trenton.
Yeah.
And we have a bed and breakfast there, and we've had so many Elvis fans come to our B&B, and we enjoy visiting with them so much. And,
how can they, if they're coming there your way, how can they make a call or anything?
Well, they can just Google Barbara Hearn. They can Google Holly Tree Manor, which is the name of our B&B.
Yeah.
But if they Google Barbara Hearn or Barbara Hearn Smith, they can work their way down. And we're hollytreemanor.us.com.
Okay, very good.
And we love to have the Elvis fans. We have lots of books and magazines and old newspapers. And the joke with us is after midnight, we tell our friends, and they are our friends. They're strangers when they walk through the door, but by midnight they're friends. And we say, we're bed and breakfast, and if you want breakfast, you'd better let us get to bed. Because we could talk all night.
They would ask you all night questions, yeah. Barbara Hearn. Barb, you know, I flash back to that day. It was 1957. I was working for a Memphis radio station, and you and Elvis and Nick Adams popped in. And that was a very historic moment because that picture is going around the world of me and Elvis in the control room at that time. Where had you guys been that day?
Oh, have to think about that. I think we came especially to see you on that. And I love that picture, and it has indeed been all around the world. I've seen it in so many publications and on the internet, of course. And if you look over to the right, you might see a half a head and a nose, and that's me.
That's you.
That's me.
And I know that Nick Adams was leaning on the shelf in the back, and you can see a little bit of Nick Adams.
Yeah, I think they might have been tired. I probably had been working all day and was less tired than they were from running around. And I'm sure Elvis had been showing Nick everything in Memphis because he really was proud of being from Memphis.
Oh, yeah.
And all these people that he brought home with him, they had to see all the sights, you know.
Barbara, you went to Southside High, as I recall, and tell us about Elvis. You know, a lot of people didn't have the opportunity to get that close to him like you did. Talk about Elvis Presley.
Oh, golly, I was so lucky. Just people come to me and they say, "Girl, you're so lucky," and I said, "I know." You know, no surprise to me. I was friends with Dixie Locke, who was dating Elvis, and that's how I got to know him in the first instance. And after they broke up, I just ran into him again at that same station where we went to see you. I was doing little bits on television for Carolyn Lowenstein, where I worked. And I bet he had been up there to see you.
Yeah, he came a couple of times,
And he was peeping in the window at the TV studio where I had been, and when I walked out, he just looked at me, recognized me right away, and said, "How's Dixie?" And I thought that was so dear because I knew from her that they had been broken up for quite some time, and I just thought it was wonderful that he still cared. You know, how she was and that she was okay.
And that led on to you starting to date him?
Yeah, he said, "I'm going out of town tomorrow. Can I call you?" And of course. I didn't have to hesitate for that answer. And he did. He called the very next day, and practically every day from then on.
You met his mom, Gladys.
Absolutely.
Talk about her. Not a lot of people never met Gladys.
Well, actually, I knew her better before I knew Elvis.
How was that?
I went with Dixie a couple of times over there when they lived on Alabama. And Dixie and I questioned Dixie about that. She didn't remember, and I said, "You know, neither one of us had a car. How did we get there?" She couldn't remember either, so I only assumed that we rode the bus all the way from South Memphis to Alabama, and we visited with Mr. and Mrs. Presley and Grandma Presley. She was there at least one time, I remember, and we would just sit on the porch and just talk, and I would listen.
Barbara, you were there. You met Gladys Love Presley was her full name. Don't you think she had a tremendous influence on him?
Oh, without question, more than anyone in
Yeah.
the world. And his life would have been so much different had she lived. I just wish she could have, you know. You can't turn back the clock, but it would have made such a difference. I think just in his happiness, just as a human being, he would have been so much better.
You're exactly right. Barbara Hearn is our guest. Barbara dated Elvis early on from Southside High School. Elvis went to Humes. That was all the way across town.
Right, right. I think he did come to somebody told me he was at a variety show, a talent show at Southside one time. Do
I
you
don't know.
about that?
I don't remember that, but of course he got around quite a bit.
Yeah.
On those motorcycles and those beautiful cars he had. But Barb, what I'm leading up to about Gladys Presley, Elvis's mom, when I was there and had I was lucky enough to know her pretty good too, and she took a liking to me. I was one of the few guys in the group she really, really liked, and I think it came from Hume's high school days because being president of the class, I gained a little bit of her respect. And what I noticed though, if she said something to Elvis, like Elvis, I wish you wouldn't date that girl, or Elvis, I wish you'd get rid of that guy in the group. There was no arguing, there's no debate,
right.
no discussion, they were gone.
She was the major domo there.
Yeah.
She absolutely was. And he listened to her, and he had respect for her. And perhaps like my own dear mother, she was usually right.
Yeah.
So, you know, history was on her side.
Exactly.
So he listened to her because he knew, you know, there'd be grief if he didn't, probably.
But Barbara, do you think that, and I've said this many times in the book that I have out now, Elvis, My Best Man, that in my opinion, had Gladys Presley lived, Elvis Presley probably would have been alive today.
Well, he certainly would have lived a lot longer,
Yeah.
I think, and been a lot happier, and had a more normal life. But maybe it wouldn't have been, you know, the Elvis that made all the difference. What if he'd had the constraints
Yeah.
on him that her just being there? I
Could have been.
don't know. It's very difficult to say, but I know as a human being he would have been a much happier man.
Yeah, I agree totally. Barbara Hearn Smith is, and your husband, can I say that he was a CIA guy? Can I say that?
Well, you can say that, but you can't elaborate on it too much.
You saw the world with him, didn't you?
Yes, we've been so lucky.
Because I'd call your mom, and she said, well, she's in Washington, but I can't tell you where. Then she's in Florida, and then she's in Europe, and you went all over the world. Barbara, one of the things that you did was really cool. You gave Elvis a Christmas present one year that he eventually wore on the Ed Sullivan Show. Can you talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. By that time, that was Christmas '56.
Yeah.
If he didn't have it, if he wanted it, he could get it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any idea what I could possibly get him for Christmas. So, you know, so many major events in my life took place in Goldsmiths. So I went down to Goldsmith's basement and I bought a remnant, a very inexpensive piece of gold lame, and same size piece of fabric of black satin, and I bought 3 little gold letters, EAP, and a pattern. I took it to a girlfriend and asked her mother if she would please sew that for me. And she could sew like nobody's.
Yeah.
So wonderful. And she said, sure. She just whipped it up for me. And I bought a gold belt to go with the vest, and I gave it to him for Christmas. When he wore it on the Ed Sullivan Show, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, you know, he really did like it. That was a good choice. And I called my friend's mother on the phone and said, you know, turn on such and such station and see your vest.
Wonder whatever happened to that vest.
I don't know. I asked the vice president marketing, I believe his name is Scott Williams.
Yes, good guy.
And I asked him if he knew what had happened to it, and he said no, but he would check and try to find out that at one point a lot of the clothes were cut up in little pieces and put on an album.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true.
And he didn't know
yeah.
whether that had been one of them or not.
I remember one, before we go, Bob, let you go. One night we're at Alderman Drive, and he liked to play Guess That Melody or something. And it was just me, you, and Elvis in that little den at Alderman Drive, and he sat down and he started playing songs. And we had to try to guess And I'm not too good at melodies. I'm good at words, but not melodies. And you were pretty good. And he said, "What's that?" You said, "Well, that's Johnny Mathis, or whatever." You said, "GK, what's that?" I said, "Oh, it sounds familiar." He said, "Oh, you're a disc jockey. You should know." But that was a good night, wasn't it?
Yeah. We had really good, that's why I say we were so lucky to be there that year.
Yeah.
There was such good, simple, everyday kind of pleasures that you could have and fun that you could have. It was so simple and yet, made your heart feel good.
Barbara, he was extremely handsome, wasn't he?
Yes, and got handsomer each year.
As he got older, yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate to ask you this, but was he a good kisser?
Well, you know what I say. I have several answers to that,
Okay.
but one I say is that in anything, any endeavor, practice makes perfect. He was perfect long before he reached me.
Barb, you're the best. Barbara Hearn, we do it like this. Girl, thanks so much for coming down. Will you come back again sometime?
I will. Anytime you want me here, I'll be here.
She's the best, one of the nicest, most polite, classiest ladies Elvis ever went with, and I was there. I can attest to that. Barbara Hearn Smith. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, George.
Okay.